The Windsor's probably the most progressive venue at the moment. They've got a lot of the younger bands, a lot of the Flying Nun bands in there. But I think, from what I can gather, the best crowds they pull are when they get a band from out of town, a South Island band particularly, which is a real switch for Auckland.
We've got quite a young audience, not a big drinking audience, which is, you know, one of the reasons that in the past it was difficult to get bands into places like the Windsor.
Yeah, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4.
What's making it work is we're getting them in such large numbers that, you know, it sort of makes up for the fact that individually they don't drink so much.
This band naturally records for the Flying Nun label. But the Able Tasmans are that rare thing, a Flying Nun band from the North Island, from Auckland in fact.
Yeah, you watch him lie, yeah, watch those eyes, watch him while he talks, yeah, watch his walk, watch his walk.
Well, Auckland being the centre of things as far as the media goes, I've always thought it's an unfortunate place for a band to actually form in, because there's a lot of pressure to sort of be like overseas bands, and, you know, like bands form with the intention of being like, you know, maybe like U2 or and Psychedelic Furs or whatever, whereas the South Island bands tend to evolve. They're just writing their own songs, and however they develop, you know, whether they're any good or bad or whatever.
And get their own sound together.
Get their own sound together. Well, it is, you know, they create their own sound.
I think the people that go to see Flying Nun bands are more likely to go to the pub. You know, they like live music, they like risks. Maybe that's why discos are popular up here.
And they are still.
Because there's no risks.
Crash goes love tonight. What I want is standing so close, touch away.
What sort of people would that attract?
For want of a better word, trendy, I suppose. A lot of hairdressers, a lot of fashion designers, people like that. People that were into punk music a few years back, their attitudes have changed. They've got slightly older. Their music tastes have changed.
You do have live bands up here, though.
Yeah, we do have live bands up here, you know, from time to time. But the people that come up are far more colourful than the people that are in most of the bands that are in New Zealand. So consequently, they're more entertaining to watch. There aren't really the amount of live bands in Auckland to be able to support that sort of system. I also don't think that the punters themselves really want those bands.
Why not?
They're maybe not as patient as they used to be.
Do you ever play any local music up here?
Yeah, we do play local music from time to time, but it's restricted, definitely. It has to fit in with the format of the music that we're playing up here, and there aren't many bands that do.
What sort of bands, perhaps, would you occasionally play here?
Car Crash Set, we usually play their releases.
There's a lot of recording being done at the moment. A lot of good stuff too.
Do you find that people are spending more time on their recordings?
I think so. I think the quality of recordings improved too. We've got some good engineers here now.
I think the New Zealand sound is changing and getting better, right through from the 8-track stuff right through the 24-track. It's a pride in the sound that you can get. Even just rehearsing in the studio, as you become sort of more attuned to it, it's more fun.
You think that you can make a good go of it purely on recorded output?
We like to think we can,
Well,
yeah.
it's entirely possible, I think. It's easy to go out and buy a record from an overseas band who you might never ever see live.
There's no moans about Auckland radio. It's totally geared towards playing local singles, that's for sure.
It's really opened up.
So you can actually, if you like, do your performance through the radio now?
And video, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a changing thing of presentation. Like, when we play, we only like to play for half an hour, because I certainly get a bit bored with any band, really, after half an hour. I think that's a great length of time to play, and then it goes straight back into whatever they want, serious drinking. We don't really need to play. We're aware of overexposure, especially with this sort of music, and basically we can afford not to.
The excitement isn't there, you know, the people aren't going out looking for something to get excited about.
Well, maybe that's not completely true. The Streets Ahead Performance Cafe has spearheaded a new, exciting type of live music venue.
The cafe seemed to be the most open venue possible because, unlicensed, the law doesn't bother you about things unless you're breaking the law, as opposed to having to stay within a strict format. We have blues, jazz, rock, comedy, performance orientated, which means that you walk on stage and do something. And the stage is small and the cafe is small, so there's a tendency for the stage and the audience to get mixed up. Like on Thursday night, we had a group called the Lifeboats performing, and they actually walked off stage and pulled the audience on stage. They set up a drum machine rhythm section, synthesized bass, told people what chords to play on guitars, mic'd up a couple of bongo drums, and the band was playing Space Invaders in the back room while the customers were playing music on stage. Things like that happen often. We've stimulated the performance art at street level a bit, I'm sure of it. What's happened is a lot of people have performed here, find they've got performance energy and something that they want to do again. So they're going to other cafe owners and saying, well, it works at the performance, it'll work here, you know.
We've been hearing that people really don't want to see live entertainment. They prefer to just go to a disco and hear pre-recorded stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't have an audience here unless I have performance. People don't come here to listen to my record collection. You know, they don't come here to watch the Space Invaders machines. You know, people come here to see live performance. And as you saw last night, you know, when the band's cooking, then the people are here to watch it.
There's a shrinking, just people have got less to spend. People, definitely there's a trend with drinking, driving, and law enforcement too.
There's two pubs basically that are playing, well, they have live bands regularly. Whereas before, 3 years ago, there might have been, you know, 4 or 5 pubs maybe.
I mean, I know it's a corny bullshit sort of thing, but a little bit of pizzazz and a little bit of production and a little bit of a show, I think, is what people are looking for.
Where they're basically just playing good music. It's just that the teenagers are the only ones perceptive enough to pick it up.
We did a gig at Main Street a few weeks ago. We got 700 people along on Sunday afternoon, you know, so that sort of proves that there people are out there and they will go if this is something they want to see.
What was the gig?
It was four Dunedin bands.
There's a lack of imagination when it comes to putting on shows in pubs. I think people want a bit more than some band ambling up on the stage.
Tell us about the Man with the Train toaster.
Well, that happened the week before last on one of our comedy evenings. He's a comedian from West Auckland, from the Henderson Valley, I think, and he brought in a toaster one night and showed us the tricks he'd developed with his toaster. It rolled over, played dead, did all those things, and eventually he had it flying around his head and eventually against the wall. And it stayed there, actually. I didn't find it until the next morning in behind the piano. And a very powerful piece. We've also had synchronized rugby, which was a very good comedy performance. It was sort of a takeoff of synchronized swimming and things at the Olympics, the new New Zealand sport, for the sort of obese but sensitive rugby player.
Well, OK, welcome to the new look Wellington. Since Sir Michael Fowler, you can see they've put up a whole new town hall. They've added thousands of shopping centres. There's pubs around the place now, restaurants.
So Wellington's all dressed up. Let's see if there's somewhere to go. Yeah, it's all a bit embarrassing, actually, for Wellington music. I see that the only things on this weekend seem to be the Top Twins, who are a women's group from Auckland, and there's the Freudian Slips. They're a feminist all-women band also from Auckland, supported by Auckland's Red Beryl. And if you're not interested in that, well, there is Wayne Gillespie. He's a singer-songwriter, but he's also from Auckland too, so it's not much good to us either. However, all is not completely lost. I see that Wellington's Pelicans are playing up at the Pulse, so let's check that up at the Clyde Quay.
I was a newspaper seller and a soldier, a dishwasher and a grease monkey. The recession hit it, put me out of work. I had to sell my car to pay the rent.
Well, the pub venues may be closing in Auckland, but in Wellington the opposite seems to have happened. 2 years ago there were no pubs featuring original music. Now there are 3.
You've been running this place now for 2 years. I mean, that must be a bit of a record, actually, for a gig in Wellington. What's the secret to success?
Hard work and the support of a lot of people.
You seem to be doing this place up now, basically.
Yeah, that way we'd get 90, 100 more people into the room.
So obviously you've got a bit of confidence in the fact that Wellington can sustain 3 gigs,
I think so, yeah. Yeah, gives the town more variety, that's for sure.
You've started up the most recently. How did the Pulse start?
Well, it started out as a different idea in entertainment. Totally different from anything that's been in Wellington before.
We seem to be drawing on different areas for different things. I tend to deal with a lot of older musicians.
A lot of the people that come to the Terminus would be people that couldn't get into the Cricketers because their dress isn't good enough. You know, they might have a jean jacket on or be a bit scruffy.
We're not competing with them directly, we're offering something alternative to them. So they will always have their stronghold in Wellington. And that's a good thing, it's a healthy thing.
We use a variety of artists in here, from jazz to blues to Irish rebel music.
We've had everything from the Skeptics to Peter Tate, performance poet, the Chills, you know, Flying Nun bands.
There's all sorts of bands, from heavy metal to new wave bands, pop bands, rock and roll bands.
We just want people to come along and have a good time, and there's something there for them to go to instead of sitting home and, you know, watching TV.
Oh, good idea too. Great plug for our program.
I would say it was healthier than it was, and that we have venues all of a sudden, and there's quite a bit of activity for the first time. But I mean, 3 months ago, it was a different story altogether. At the same time, I would say that there was somewhat of a tightrope act going on, in that nothing is assured. 3 months into the future, and there may be no venues once again.
So it's still pretty volatile.
Very, yeah.
When I can, I use Wellington bands. My attitude is that they have to prove themselves firstly, and how I give them the opportunity to do that is to get them in to do supports for some of the big bands, like Coconut Rough or the Jive Bombers or something like that, and it gives them stage confidence.
Well, the pubs are great places to get your stage act together, but a lot of Wellington's most interesting bands couldn't care less about their stage act. They want to be listened to, and so they try and avoid playing in pubs.
I think that young people are frustrated at times because they can't hear the music that they'd like to.
Do you think that the pub as the main place for a band to play, do you think that's going to continue for a while in Wellington?
Definitely. There aren't a lot of venues in Wellington. I've looked for venues outside of the pub to do other things and found it difficult. There are a few clubs in Wellington, but some of them are concentrating on disco rather than live music.
Discos, they sound like fun. Let's go and have a look.
Hey guys, what do you think about Claire?
Oh, George!
Yes, well, we all know what discos look like, don't we? Let's flag it away.